Welcome everyone, and Allie through Zoom. This is Sheila Bass. I'm sure a few of you know her, familiar with her. Some new members, not so much. She is an incredible speaker, so we're super excited to have her here today and kick off August. I can't believe it's August. So I almost said October, which is crazy, but business.
We're not ready for that.
I know. I'm thinking of October programming already, so it's in my mind. Kicking off business growth and development for the month of August programming. So she will kick it off and do some intros and introduce herself, and then we'll go around and have you guys introduce yourselves as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I was just saying earlier that I love being in person. I have not done it as much as I would like to, and with the weather being nice, being here has been really great. So I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much to kick off August, which I've also had to turn the calendar in my head. I know we have one or two on Zoom too, so I'll try to stay in my window here. You guys might have to zap me. But yeah, maybe with some introductions. I would love, I know name and what you do, but I'd also love to know what you'd love to kind of learn or talk about today. Just curious what's on your mind as it relates to building relationships. I would love for this to be super interactive. I think many of you, and I'm hearing a lot of business owners too, that you all have some great ways to build relationships. So I would love for you all to kind of share your ideas as well as we go along. I'll just give a quick background on me. So I've been actually with the same company for 16 years, but in very different roles. So currently I'm a change management professional, which kind of the short and sweet of it is anything that our company is trying to do or change, I'm there to help kind of our leaders think through how it's going to impact a variety of different stakeholders. So thinking about people, which I love. And I am a mom to 3 boys, 8 and under. So I'm a boy mom. It's crazy, but it's super fun. And my passion, which is why I'm here, and also why I sit on the board of the Rice Society nonprofit organization, is I just have such a passion for elevating women and girls in lots of different ways. So everything from just being in the space here to these types of sessions is something that I just love to do. So thank you for the opportunity. So I remember when Cindy reached out to me a few weeks back about leading a session on business development and networking. And I was like, networking. So what I want to do, and I heard a little bit about this through some of the intros, but I would love to just, when you hear the word networking, are you like thumbs up? Yes, networking. Or are you like, not so much thumbs down, or you could be somewhere in the middle, based on how you think about what it is. Yeah.
I would say early on, I hear thumbs down, but as you get older, I'm more comfortable.
Right. I think coming out of COVID too, I'm like, I will talk to anyone. Social interaction, yes. So,
or I've seen the opposite too. People are like, talking to people again? Because you're like, Zoom is a little bit of a different.
They look very different in 3D than 2D.
All that. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit of a mix, which I actually love. So the reason why I asked this question is just because at first, when I was thinking about networking, I was like, I don't know. Is that I love meeting with people. I know several of you in the room here do too. And I really do think about it as more as building relationships. And just for fun, I did look up the definitions of these, which I think really speaks to kind of how I think about it in my mind, and would love to get your thoughts. So for networking, the definition is the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. Yeah. Okay. Building relationships. This person who builds great relationships doesn't think about what she wants. She starts by thinking about what she can give. She sees giving as the best way to establish a real relationship and a lasting connection. So I really loved that, because that's a lot of how I think about growth, is through building relationships. And some of you already said this. I mean, through building relationships is how you not only achieve your personal growth, but also growth in whatever it is that you do for a living. And so I'd love to hear from you all about sort of how building relationships or relationships in general. So everything from customer to colleague to vendor, it can be any form of those relationships, why they are important for both personal and professional growth.
This one I know you want an answer, so.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's funny because Sydney and I just kind of had this conversation this morning. Networking, like, depending on the type of networking, is that positive or negative? If somebody is like just really trying to, hey, buy my product, hand me their business card, like, I'm out. I don't want that. I want to learn that person, learn about them, what they need, because with my clients, I want to know that because I want to make them successful and help them. And I get that little bit of ego satisfaction when they're, whether it was anything I did or not, if they're succeeding, it's like, that's awesome. Being that kind of, I want to be invested because that makes me work harder for them as well. It makes it more fun because then it's not just, a checklist. And I want the same. I want my clients to want to, work with me long term. And that makes us different in what we do. There's a lot of marketing first. They just want to churn it. They just want, high numbers. They just want that client. Oh, we had 50 clients this week. I'd rather have quality.
Right. And then you think about like sustainability over the long term. So if it's just about the numbers, and how are you going to get the numbers next year, next quarter, whatever it may be. I think that's a really good point.
Right. And like you had mentioned, you're going to get busier and not able to handle those. But if you're getting those quality people, you're still keeping that stuff. Because you get motive, greedy. I'll take them all. Give them all to me.
Yeah. Especially when you're starting out. Right.
Yes.
Right.
I think I'm a nonprofit, which is probably the odd duck in the room, but I think that for me, we have so many different categories of constituents. Like we have students, we have audience members, we have donors, we have volunteers, we have, so like they all fit into these very different platforms. And I have to really get to know somebody first before I know where they would benefit from our programs. So like that is always step one, is getting to know them. So, because I don't really know what to offer them if I don't know them as a person. And so I feel like getting to know them and even establishing deeper relationships that kind of evolve over time can sort of also morph into like, they can evolve into all sorts of things, like then I want their services or whatever, like it can go both ways.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, I think it's so important for professional growth, but also like on the personal side, that's what fuels me. And that's kind of why I do nonprofit work.
Yeah.
It's not for the money. That's clear. So like I do it because the people are awesome and because it's great to work with them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this. I'm hearing a couple things, I think, and Erin and Michelle both sort of said it. It's like, it's what fuels you. It's what brings you joy. Right. And so it's more than just like names, like more and more names, right? More and more people. There's also, I love this element of getting to know people so that you can kind of attract either the right type of client, customer, partnership. But I think, Erin, to your point, to also determine, you can see something on paper, but we all know we're multidimensional people, so we don't just sort of squarely fit in a category. I sort of, with this question, I intentionally put personal and professional, because I don't know about you all, but for me, really trying to draw a line between the two is not, first of all, something that I want to do, and it doesn't really happen that way. Because I think, Erin, to your point, I thought where you were going with it is, there's been people that I've met over the years that have turned into great friends too. So it's not just, that wasn't my intention going in, but it sort of happens because to me, those really good relationships, whether it turns into a friendship or just somebody that you can count on, it really can be difficult to sort of draw that line. And I don't know that you have to. So I think that's something else that is good to keep in mind. And so again, as I was preparing for this, all the psychology related articles talked a lot about the why being well-being. like our overall well-being, which really resonated with me. If we looked kind of more just traditional business side, it was like, to get more, to do, to get to your next thing. And I really think it's both. I really do think it's both. I think, as you guys have all talked about already, if you think broadly about relationship building and you invest the time. So I think that's the other, that can be a little bit of a drawback. We were talking earlier about what's the difference between networking and relationship building. Well, inherently, relationship building does take time, but it's sort of the, planting the seed, and then it's growing, and then all of a sudden you have this like full-blown group of people that you can count on, they can count on you, and it's like for years, right? It's not just 1 quarter to 1 quarter or year to year. So that's really kind of how the why that resonates with me is I think it's both. And I think that it really can also help us grow as individuals too. Okay, my next question. So as you think about some of the strongest business-oriented relationships you have, and like we just said before, some of these folks might also be friends too, which is totally fun. What makes for like a meaningful relationship? Like how is it meaningful to you, and how is it authentic? Would love to hear if anybody has thoughts just off the top of their mind on that.
Well, authentic to me at first just kind of means like you can kind of show your true self, the good and bad. Even like in a work team setting, if someone's struggling with something, if it's a good, meaningful relationship, they're able to actually voice that they're struggling rather than hiding it or being ashamed of that.
Right.
And kind of being open to feedback and working through what those struggles are and coming out better from that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think accountability falls into that too. Having that person who's accountable, because everybody wants to know you because you have a great network, and if I get in with you, then I'm gonna network with all those other people, and that happens a ton, and that super sucks because I'm one of those people like I'm all in, like I want to be that, and then to realize like you're being used,
right,
something like that.
Yeah, it does not feel good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's and this probably takes on different flavors for all of you, but to me, what comes to mind is like, yes, being authentic, being vulnerable. Like I can think about maybe not in a traditional interview setting, but even people that I'm meeting for the first time, it's like, if I had like a crazy something that happened to me before I showed up or whatever, like I've gotten to a place where like I talk about it because it's like, we're all human at the end of the day, no matter how perfect someone or something looks on paper. So I think just start off that relationship from like a very transparent and vulnerable way, I think just goes a long way, because what I have found is like the honesty that you're giving somebody else, they're going to give right back. And I think from honesty is where you kind of get some of those really great partnerships and ideas and things like that. I love the accountability one too. So it's not just sort of like meeting with someone just to meet with somebody. It's like, I want to help you, they want to help you, and you have that accountability, right? That can also take on different forms there. I think transparency too, and it's fun, right? So I think it's okay to have fun in what seems like a networking kind of a interaction, because a lot can come from when you're getting to know somebody, right? Like learning about their interests, their passions, things that you didn't even know would be the case because maybe you're meeting on a totally different topic. So I love all that. Okay, so this is the fun part. So last night I emailed Sydney a worksheet not because I want to make it school-like, but I just wanted to make sure that you all felt like you could take something really tangible away, even if it's one thing that you take away today. That would be awesome. So one of the things that I thought would be helpful to do is almost kind of take a step back and think about, and I know everybody's sort of in different roles and different phases of what you do. Think about your current set of relationships. And I borrowed this chart it came out of a Forbes article, but I tweaked it a little bit. And I really liked it because it sort of will start to surface a couple things that we'll talk about. And then the next thing I want to do then is kind of do like a look forward. So here's maybe who you kind of interact with or you would consider your key relationships. And then go forward, how should I think about sort of who I should be connecting with, or how should I think about that? So I'm hoping there's some good nuggets there for everybody. So if we could just take a quick couple minutes, you don't have to fill out every line, but if you could get through most of them, you'll see key relationship names. So just think of, and this could be, it could be a colleague, it could be a vendor, it could be your leader, your boss. I mean, think about kind of the full breadth and depth of relationships, who you would consider good, strong relationships. And then also, if you can remember who introduced you to that person, and you can put yourself, right? Because in a lot of cases, you might have, approached them or found yourself in a situation. So I'll just give maybe a minute or two for you all to do that. Okay. So I guess my first question is, how easy did that come to you all? So you think about kind of the strong relationships you have, they're probably top of mind. Okay. So kind of the first thing that I think, and I did this too, by the way, in preparation for this, but look at the column, the second column, the who introduced you, and how many times, like, do you have yourself down? And is it more than other people? Does anybody have yourself down more than other people introduce you? Okay. About half and half. Okay. So what's interesting about that, so there's kind of a couple of things that I think that is helpful to see this. One is, if you have introduced yourself to most or more of your individuals, well, number one, that's great because you're taking advantage of these opportunities. But something else that I've had actually been pushing myself to do over the last couple of years is, I think it's also really, for all of us, probably, it's easy for us to sort of gravitate towards people who we think like us, are like us, friendly, whatever it is, characteristics that you really like about yourself that you see in others. You're like, oh yeah, I could, like, this person seems like really cool, or I'd love to have them in my network, which is good. But as we think about growth and how we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone and how we think differently, how we solve problems creatively, sometimes having too many people that are too much like us can almost, in a way, plateau the way we think about what we're doing, how we break through. So that's kind of one takeaway is, if you have yourself down more than you have other people, it could mean, and I know probably you didn't capture everything on here, but just take it with a grain of salt. It might mean that this could be, as you think about the go forward plan that we'll work on, how can you diversify the types of people that you're building relationships with? So it doesn't mean forget who you have, but how do you diversify? So that's kind of one thing. The second thing is, other than yourself, does anybody have in the second column of who introduced you, a name of somebody else who's connected you and you have that person down more than once? That's okay, if not. Well, if you continue this exercise farther, this is another great way to realize who your super connectors are too, that you may not even realize. So think about how you've met maybe the 5 to 10 different people or more, your strongest relationships. So you might have met them on your own, which is great, or somehow, some way you got connected through somebody else. And if it's happening multiple times, as you think about who those folks are, that's sort of your super connector. And the reason why that's kind of good to know is, one, you may already know that, by the way, and that's great. But if you don't, it's good to sort of know who those people are in your world and how your relationship is with them. And are you, we talked about relationship building being about giving back, right? And helping others. How do you feel like you're sort of seeding and growing that relationship with your super connector? So that's kind of something else. I know for me it was an aha too. I was thinking it was one person and it was another person. It was kind of just interesting and eye-opening. So if you didn't have another name, and you want to kind of continue the thinking, I would encourage you to maybe list out some more relationships and see if there's somebody who sticks out. Any surprises on that, or did you think about diversity of relationships or anything like that?
Most of mine, it's funny because I've been thinking of this before. We were having this conversation with somebody somehow, like how the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of thing or whatever. And like a lot come from events, just random people you meet at events. And when you ask about the who, because I'm looking like, well, it was at this, but really it was me. I went up to that person, because I'm always going up to people or whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of these things are all at an event where my
Yeah.
super people kind of came from.
Well, and I would wonder too, Michelle, and it might be really diverse, but of the events you're going to, how are you finding out and or learning about these events? And is that through like one particular organization or one person? It could be no, but that would be another layer that I would think through too, because that's kind of interesting.
Nope, totally.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of them came up, so.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this was really just maybe to kind of reset on who are those key relationships. How is the diversity in those relationships? And then if you have a super connector, who is that person? So you can continue to build and grow that relationship. So, but what I would love to help everyone do is sort of with the go forward plan. And Erin, I'm thinking about what you said, which is, gosh, like you can meet people and meet people and meet people. There's only so much time in the day, and how do you really spend your time, and where do you spend your time? And that can shift. And there's probably going to be, there's also cyclical aspects to everybody's business, I'm sure, right? So it's not necessarily going to be kind of an even keel throughout the year. But what I'd love to do is help everybody start to think about an approach for building more relationships or growing the relationships that you have on a go forward basis, but anchor them to kind of going back to the theme of growth. What I'd love to do, and you'll see this on, I think, page 2. If we could just take a minute to write down what are kind of a couple of goals that you have. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be this pie in the sky thing, but just think about growth goals. It could be personal growth, business-oriented growth. It could be through year end of this year. It could be getting into the next year, but how are you and or your business looking to grow? So everybody have at least 1 or 2 more down. I love that. You guys are on it. I agree, Michelle. Sometimes the goals question are like, oh, but what are my goals today?
Right.
The reason why I wanted to just take a minute on that is just for all of us to sort of anchor to what's probably, when you boil it all down, there's a lot going on for everybody at work, at home, wherever. What's kind of your key areas of focus? And to me, if you can start with that as your anchor, as you're thinking about how you spend your time meeting new people, and or as you think about your current relationships that you have, where you want to dig deeper, it can help you just sort of stay focused strategically on where's most important. So, okay, so now that you have that, sort of the next aspect of it is, and some of you I think already started, which is awesome. If you can think of up to like 6 people, and it can be people who you already have met with maybe once, or or you've been meaning to meet with them, 6 people that you probably want to either deepen the relationship with and you already know them, or you don't know them and you think, just given your goals, your growth goals, it would be good to connect with them. And not just connect, but build a relationship. So I'll give you just a minute to do that. All right, so this is what, now we want to put it into action. So the 6 really came from, if we were like between July and August, so there's 6 months-ish left to the year. I think one of the things that I know can be a struggle, like we talked about earlier, is just like finding the time. And I know it probably feels like setting up time to meet is like, there's all these other things I could be doing. And should you really be spending your time on this? And I think if you have kind of the list of the people that you want to continue to build a relationship with or build new relationships with, I think the next thing I'd love for everybody to do is, if it works in your schedule, there might be another way you can approach this, but what is like one day in the month that you can dedicate to this? So it's not a one-day meeting per se, right? But like all these folks, if the calendars magically worked, you're going all in on either one person, 2 people, and it's almost like taking one person a month or a couple people a month. Maybe jot down any ideas on a particular day of the month that might work well for you. And if you wanted to break it up more, maybe it's like 2 days a month or something. So the other thing I was going to have you guys do is, think we can almost do that. I'd love for you to share just a little bit about, like maybe a couple of people you wrote down and why, and like when you're, kind of your strategy for when you could meet with them, maybe with somebody sitting near you, and feel free to do 2s or 3s, because that's where the accountability comes in. That's where I was going next. So maybe just take a couple of minutes to share, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing names, that's okay, but to kind of share it with somebody else, say it out loud, and mentally commit to it. So maybe just a couple minutes to do that. So, okay, that's all the worksheet filling out we have, you guys. But this was because, I don't know if you're like me, but it's like if I write it down and I think about it for a little bit, I'm more likely to do it. So I'll just kind of leave everybody with this. Okay, so I said I'm in change management. So this is like one of the first things I do with anything, which is, what is the current state and where are we? And then where are we trying to go to? So I sort of applied that here, but I kind of did it a little bit different. So like thinking about networking, we read the definition earlier, and going to building relationships. How do we sort of think about that and frame our mind? So kind of, we talked a little bit about some of these. So first, like more is more. I feel like at least the way that I've thought about networking, right or wrong, it's been like, okay, gotta meet all these people, gotta get all these business cards. I still have, like, I would go to conferences for work, and I have like all these business cards. I could not tell you what I talked to with anybody. So I'm like, how are these gonna help me? Versus quality, and especially where you have shared interests. And it can be with people who think nothing like you, but you both have a passion for X, or you both are interested in solving this type of a problem, right? So it's kind of thinking differently about that. Networking sometimes can be perceived as, and we talked about a little bit of Michelle, but focusing on what you can promote and sell and get and ask for, right? As opposed to, what can you learn? What can you learn from this other person and their experience and what they do? This sort of tags on to the last one, but it's like, okay, what I'm going to ask them for X, or hopefully we can do, Y. And so instead of thinking about it that way and going into it that way, it's, what can you give this person? You're meeting with them, you want to get to know them, but what can you give them? And it doesn't obviously tangible give, it can be, think broadly about that. And then the last one, which I think can happen in big and small ways, it's going from how will this get you ahead and achieve your goals and get you to the, whatever number you want to get to, how do you contribute to the greater good in whatever that means for you? And so like one small example I can think of in my experience. So I've been with the same company, like I said, for a long time. It's a very large organization. The industry in financial services tends to be male dominated. And so for me, I tend to make times for like women's groups and advocating for women in leadership positions, right? And mentor programs and things of that nature. So that's a little bit how I think about, if I can build relationships in a way that furthers that, or spend my time that furthers that, that really can hopefully impact more than even one person. I like to do that. So that's just kind of something else to kind of think about. And then there's this quote from, I hadn't seen before, from Maya Angelou. Things are changing so fast out there that you need to recognize that all you have is your skill set and your relationships. And I thought that was a great way to think about it, because the world is changing in so many different ways, everything from what we need and want to like what jobs there are and what skills you need. And I heard, as you all were talking about this earlier in the introductions, like relationships really do stand the test of time. And as you get to know people and you're helping others, like how you come together can be in a variety of different ways. Just like how you think about what growth means for you and your business and what you do is going to continue to evolve. So I just thought that resonated with me as I thought about this. So that's all I have. And we have some time to spare. I have to say, when I was thinking about this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope we don't run out of time. But I'm happy to give a little bit of time back too. But if there's any questions anybody has or ideas or anything like that, anything that you're feeling left unanswered, happy to talk about whatever is on your mind.
Yeah. So just as a community manager, and my whole goal is outreach and finding new people and new members, it's kind of hard to do the cold messaging.
Yeah.
So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm sending a message just being like, hey, I want to get to know you and have coffee. And people are kind of like, what's your agenda?
Yeah.
So getting around that and not being like, yes, my goal is to sell you a membership, hopefully, or an office or whatever it is. But also, I do want to get to know you and maybe you know someone else who has that. So kind of being professional, but also, I don't know, a way to approach that
Yeah.
is hard.
Well, so there's, I'm sure, tons of great ideas in the room. Like, one thing that I know is probably not a super quick fix is, I think introductions from others really go super long. Like, I will tell you, like, when I'm getting emails or messages, if it's coming from, it could be somebody I have no idea, I don't know who they are, but they were recommended by like one of my long-standing relationships. I don't even think twice. Like, I'm like, I trust this person. They're connecting us. I gotta talk to this person. Like, I just had one actually right before this session started. I'm like, doesn't matter who this person is, I'm meeting with them because I trust them.
Yeah.
And I realize that that's not, it's not necessarily like a quick way, but I don't know if anybody else has any ideas to share.
That's what I was gonna say with LinkedIn especially.
Yeah.
If there's somebody I want to connect with, I see who they're connected to that I'm connected with, then I go, it's like the back doorway. I go to that person like, hey, how well do you know that person?
Yeah.
You know, this is what I'm looking for. Do you think they'd be interested? And I have them make the introduction. Hey, you know, Erin, you need to meet Cindy. You know, you'll love her. You two connect. You know, kind of thing. Because then that person's more likely to
Totally.
schedule that coffee with you.
I agree.
Like, oh, Michelle.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems sneaky, but it's not. It's, if you message me, I would ignore you because I'm the
Right.
amount of LinkedIn
Yeah.
messages that
Oh,
come
yeah.
in of people want to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But if
Right.
somebody else was like, hey, you two should connect, I think you have a lot in common. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think also like reaching out to people like in Rise that you could say like, hey, like if you know people with an interest, I'm sure you already do that, but like trying to leverage like the people that you have really good relationships with already, that could be an option. I'm sure that's probably.
Or more specific, because then my brain goes,
Right.
I don't know.
I know.
But if you said like, I'm
Right.
looking for a person,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, the who
In
do
this
you know
industry,
broadly
yeah.
can be hard.
Yeah.
That can be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think though, like something else I thought of when you asked your question is just in general, because things haven't been a lot in person, right? It's like the electronic thing can be difficult. Again, I think the introduction can help overcome that, but yeah, electronic messages I think can just be a little bit harder also because I don't know about anybody else, but like you have a ton too. So they're just, it's easy to miss things sometimes. So.
And I think too, with the past year, everyone's really prioritizing things. So if you see a random message come through, you're like, that's probably not going to serve me at all. So why would I? So yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. What else? What other questions? What would be holding you back from putting your plan in place?
I think a lot of the people that I would love to establish relationships with are swamped. Like they're like the higher ups at a big corporation and they are being bombarded with requests for meetings 24/7. And so it's kind of one of those things where like I want to be respectful of their time, but how do I also establish that relationship? You know, how does that even happen?
Yeah. So a couple things run through my mind. One is, and I realize, because I've had like points of time where it's like you're quadruple booked all day. Like you literally, it's like you don't even have time to use the bathroom. So I realize folks that are really high up, same kind of thing.
Right.
Where you're just so busy. I do truly believe though that people make choices on where they spend their time. But in terms of how to break through, especially if you don't know someone and it's not an introduction from somebody else, it's almost like how do you meet people where they're at? And so it's like, is it like I'm thinking about it in my world, is it a 7:45 a.m. coffee as opposed to like an 8:30 and 9 or like the key meeting times? What are some maybe unique ways or other pockets of time? Or it's,
I mean, I've gone so far as to like, whenever I'm at a gala event and I see this person like
Dart.
a mile away across
like,
the
"I
ballroom,
can't
and
talk
I'm
to
like,
you."
excuse me, I gotta talk to them. And I seem like a psycho, but I'm also like, I just want to say hello and like
Totally.
make a touch point.
Well, I think,
But it seems like that seems a little crazy.
no. I mean, that would be funny. That would be fun and funny to watch, but,
Oh, come with me
In
to
a
any
dramatic
gala. It
way.
happens every single time.
no, I bet it's a lot more flawless than what you're saying. But the other thing I'm thinking too, Erin, is for any of the folks you're trying to meet, what would be something that would create desire in whatever the topic is or the organization is? So like I think about there's actually a super high up person who's retiring at Edward Jones, right? And I think about like galas and things that he's made time for because his daughters major in dance and loves dance. Like that is going to start to speak.
I'm
to
pretty
people.
sure I know
You know
who
who
it is
it
because she danced with us.
Oh,
last
okay.
year.
Okay. Well, because we were at the same table at
Yeah.
the Big Money
Yeah,
Ball.
yeah.
Anyway, so I think about like how then can you connect with people in more than just their professional life that's really going to speak to them in a way that you know they don't get 20 times a day.
Yeah.
Which it takes a little bit of like a little homework probably, but that would be another way that I wonder could sort of start to open the door for
How to
people.
stand out.
Totally. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I just think about if I were in those shoes, right? And I like anything related to any of my kids and like what they want to do or they need to be successful, whatever, I'd be like, yes, I'm gonna do what I need to do so that I can support them. So I don't know if there's a silver bullet to that one,
Right.
but I wonder about like unique times, ways you can catch people. Like maybe there's somebody who like goes on a walk for 30 minutes every day, or I don't know, and you're like, oh, I love with you. I just happen to be outside your door.
I'm 9 months pregnant. Oh my Lord, that's
Maybe not that forward. You got the idea. Any other ideas on that one though? Anyone who's tried to meet with somebody who has been just difficult because they're so busy? Or vice versa, if you're somebody who people try to meet with and you're busy, like how are you deciding when you make the time and when you don't?
I haven't personally done this, but my husband is kind of in sales and he does this all the time, is building a relationship with the gatekeeper, like that person's
Yes,
assistant.
yeah.
all corporations
spouse
have a
or-
gatekeeper.
Yes,
Yes.
so, you know,
Yeah.
figuring out a way in there.
Donuts,
Yeah.
flowers,
I
whatever.
had a friend who she would send, like, if she couldn't meet somebody, but she saw somebody in an event, she can only meet so many
Yeah.
people, but she's like, meant to get over to them, but couldn't. She would send them a card, and she's an older lady, and she would send them a card that was like, hey, didn't get to, meet with you, but I wanted to say I saw you. You may not remember who I am, so I would close the picture, and she would have a picture of Jennifer Aniston in there. And she would then go, haha, that's not really me, I'm on the back. And she put a picture of herself, like her headshot on the back. But she got more calls from that because
Oh, yeah.
it's something funny that
It
people
is
are like,
funny.
I surely would have remembered Jennifer Aniston, and it was like a guy or whatever. And so I always thought, I'm gonna try that one time.
That's
She had
really
great luck
clever.
with it because it also showed that person, I didn't get a chance to come around to
Right.
you. You look very busy, whatever. And you still got to connect with them and probably got a little more alone time because they took the time to read it or whatever.
Right.
Or if it got to the gatekeeper who opens all the mail and said, well, you
Yes.
gotta check out this one.
Right.
And all the other
Yeah.
ones just kind of get shoved to the
Yeah,
side
that's
for
cute. I
request.
like
That is funny. I like that one.
Yeah, if you saw it, it was extra hilarious.
Yeah.
Not that she's not a Jennifer Aniston, but.
I love that. Good. What else? Anything else? Wondering how they're gonna do?
I was gonna say you should do something in January and follow up and see where we're at.
Yeah, I will. As long as we have track of who's registered.
Yeah.
We'll follow up. But maybe I won't wait for 6 months, right? Because we all know how this works.
Right.
Just cram it all in the last like 2 or
Yes.
3.
Right. Let me make sure.
Just go over the history.
Holiday meeting.
I know.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for spending your lunch hour with me. I hope that it was helpful and you took some
Really
things
good.
away and, yeah, let's go meet some people. you know?
Yeah.